Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, or shall I say, welcome home. Pippin Home Designs. Yeah, that's what she does. She welcomes you back with an amazing home. And again, we're here with Jenny Pippin, who founded Pippin Home Designs, and her commitment really shows enhancing people's lives through great design. Her mission is crystal clear, making sure her clients feel fully supported and living their best lives right where they spend most of their time, which of course is their home. So welcome back to the show today, Jenny. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jill. I hope you are as well.
I am and doing well. Weather's a little warmer here, and you're down in North Carolina, correct?
Yes, yeah, we have a beautiful sunny. I think it's going to be quite a warm afternoon.
Oh, well, we're
Yeah.
excited to have you here. What an amazing career in education and architectural design and the work you're doing. So, before we get started here, excited to have you back on Zoom as well. Tell us a little bit about Pippin Home Designs and what you do before we get into today's topic of conversation.
Thank you. We design fully supportive homes for people that are living on waterfront and mountainsides, anything focusing on a view. Could even be an equestrian estate or a farm. We design new homes and renovate existing homes as well.
Well, we are thankful and grateful you're here again. The work is superior. Could you share the website, how we can find out more about you before we continue?
Yes, of course. The website is pippinhomedesigns.com, and that's pippinhomedesigns.com.
All right. Well, thanks for being here and on Instagram as well. So let's get started. I know there's a lot to think about when choosing a property to build on, right? So
Yeah.
let's share. You mentioned development or not, HOA versus no restrictions. Let's talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, so I have a lot of clients that'll contact me before they have a piece of land to build on that they want to have a home designed. And I always recommend they buy the property first because you want to design the home specifically for that building site and not
Okay.
trying to design a house and then find a site that it might fit on. Because
Okay.
that's a backwards way of going about it. So one of the first things that we recommend people to think about is, do they want to be in a development that has an HOA, which is the homeowners association, or do they want to be in an area that doesn't have an HOA? And the reason for that is because the HOA offers or requires a lot of different restrictions, and it could offer, some gated communities and things like that. But a lot of restrictions clients might not understand or realize that they may be getting into if they buy a property that's in a restricted community. Things such as where the garage doors can be located. Some developments don't want the garage door to face the street. Or if they want to put solar panels on, a lot of developments still don't allow you to put solar panels on the front of the house where it would be seen from the street. And if your lot happens to face the south side from the street, then that's the ideal side to put the solar panels on. So that's definitely a lot that you wouldn't want to purchase if you're considering solar. And the other things are, trash collection and vehicles and the number of animals you can have. And there's just so
Mm-hmm.
many restrictions to think about. Also, in terms of architectural styles, there's some communities that don't allow certain styles. Like, for
Uh-huh.
instance, if you want to do a really modern house that has a low roof pitch or a single direction pitch for the roof, which is called a shed roof, some developments don't allow that modern style, and they have a minimum roof pitch of, say, an 8 and 12, and you want to do something that's more like a 3 or 4 and 12 pitch, then you wouldn't be able to build that particular style within that community. So there's a lot of things to think about in terms of, where you want to build if you're going to be looking for something that has restrictions or not having restrictions. We have a lot of clients now that have been living in those type of developments with the restrictions, and they're moving out so they can have more flexibility.
Interesting. Yeah, even like when it comes to what you could build on your property. I live in a gated community, a small little community on Long Island. It's nothing fancy at all, but when I moved in, I mean, I love the grounds look great and the landscaping they keep up, but there's so many rules and people complaining about the garbage. It has to be out, but if it's not out at a certain time, it has to be in the street. If it's on you get fined for I had construction being done to get a pool. You have dirt in the street for more than a
Yeah.
month. And I'm like, well, it's going to be that way for for a few, you need to clean that up. So there's a lot of hassle with the gated communities as well. I know. I
Absolutely.
I understand. Also, I moved into a community not knowing you're not allowed to rent out as well if you wanted to rent the house. All those things I didn't realize before. But okay, anyway.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned on-site well and septic versus city, county, water, sewer. What about the pros and cons of that?
So a lot of the developments will have either city or county water and sewer available that you can tap into, and there'll be like a water tap fee or a sewer tap fee. And if you're on a property that has that connection to a municipality, then you could have as many bedrooms as you want in your home.
Hmm.
But if you're on a site where you have to have an on-site well and an on-site septic, you have to have the land perk tested to determine how many bedrooms that property can actually handle. And they do it based on number of bedrooms rather than number of bathrooms, which is what most people think it should be number of bathrooms, right? Because you're talking septic, but it's actually based on the number of potential occupants that would be living in that
Wow.
home. And they determine that based on the number of bedrooms and it being potentially two people per bedroom. So say if you want to have a 5 bedroom house, but your property only perks for a 3 bedroom house, then you can only legally put in 3 bedrooms into that house. And then you can only resell it. Even if you use other rooms for additional bedrooms that aren't called a bedroom on your plans, you can still only resell that house for a 3 bedroom plan or a 3 bedroom design versus the 5 bedrooms that you may have been using it for. So some
Hmm.
people will go in and put in an office, an exercise room, a home theater, other multi-purpose spaces, bonus rooms, and then actually use them as bedrooms. So we've seen a lot of that, but that's something to really think about. But the pros are if you have in terms of having city water and sewer, you can have as many bedrooms as you want. You can have as many bathrooms as you want. It doesn't really matter. Other than does it fit in your budget, right? And then the cons, of
Exactly.
course, are, limiting you again on the size of house that you can fit on your site. If you have an on-site well and septic tank, you have to be at least 25 feet off of the well with any permanent structure. And then for the septic, you have to be at least 5 feet, I believe it is, off the septic tank, 10 feet off of the drain field. And then depending on how many bedrooms you have, typically it's 100 feet of drain field line per bedroom. And then you also have to have what's called a repair area. And the
Hmm.
repair area is another space on your property that you have to reserve for a future drain field location in case your current drain field ever stops working. And one of the reasons it could potentially stop working is if you get a lot of vegetation growing roots into it, or if you're driving across it, compacting it so that it no longer functions and, you know, seeps the land the way it's supposed to and discharging the sewage. So, those sorts of things you have to think about as well. So all of those things then compact how much area is left on your site in order to build a house on it. And
Wow.
then you have setbacks as well. So you
Yeah.
got a
What are
front,
setbacks exactly? Could you share what that means? Yeah, I always
yes,
get
yeah.
confused with that.
Yeah, so everybody has a property with property lines. That's the boundary of your site. Say you buy a 1 acre site, you don't have the entire 1 acre to build upon. You have to be generally in most municipalities, or as far as I know, everywhere, you have to have a certain distance off of those property lines on all sides. So generally a street side in our area is like 35 feet off of the street that you can't build your house up to, within that 35-foot setback. And then if you're on the lake in our area, you have to be 50 feet off of the water side or the high water mark or your rear property line. So that restricts you front and rear. And then there's side setbacks. So typically it's like 10 or 15 feet. You have to be set back within the sides of the property lines on each side that way. So all of those things then start to form all of these restrictions, and you end up with a building envelope, is what we call it, that gives you the remaining space to design a house within. And so you want to try to find out what your site perks for and where the well is going to go in the beginning before you start designing. And then have your site plan or survey. And then you also want to have a topo, I don't think I put a topo on your list, but a
Okay, go ahead.
topo
What's
is short for a topographical survey, which actually is the lay of the land. So you know if the land is sloped or flat, and then you can design the house based on that particular configuration of your land.
oh my
And
goodness.
if you've got a slope, then typically we put in a basement. In our area, we don't generally do full in-ground basements. I know they do that a lot up north. And a reason for that is because the frost line depth, you have to dig your foundation footings down far enough to get below the frost line depth. And it's much deeper in the north than it is in the south. So here where I am in North Carolina, our frost line depth is 12 inches.
Hmm.
So we only have to dig our basements or our actually our crawl spaces for our footings very shallow. And so if you want to have a basement in our area, we recommend you buy a lot that's got a slope so that you can build what we call a walkout basement. And the walkout allows you to have daylight in that basement on the sloping sides. You can have windows and doors and a patio and a lot of times swimming pool on that lower level. And if you don't have enough slope for that, then you're not going to put in a basement. You don't want to build a tall crawl space and then have all that wasted area. And it also, if you have a tall crawl space, then you're going to have a lot of steps up into the house from the
Yeah.
front door and also into the garage, and you don't really want to do that.
Wow, wow, wow. This is fascinating. Let me just ask you something.
Yeah,
Also, well, I have to remind everyone how we contact you. That's important. Jenny Beeman Pippin, tell us the website.
it's pippinhomedesigns.com.
Okay. And also on social media as well.
Yes,
You were talking about the waterfront property, right?
yeah.
How do I pronounce it? What is it? Riparian buffer?
Riparian buffer. Yeah. So riparian buffer is an area that is restricted for any kind of construction. You can't remove trees or vegetation over a certain diameter of tree. Something really small you could remove. But, I think it's 6 inches and above, you can't remove those trees at all. And the reason for the riparian buffer is to protect the water quality. So if you've got construction or other land uses going on, then you're going to have during rainstorms, you're going to have water runoff that is taking water flow down to the either your lake or your stream or whatever you're buffering, and that will protect the water quality because that vegetation then helps to filter whatever's coming down through that water, and also it protects the wildlife in that area as well. So keeping the that area safe and undisturbed for construction is what the main reason is for that riparian buffer.
Got it. Now, also, when you're buying a waterfront property, you should know like the water rights too, right? If you're allowed to build, to have what do we call it? Blanking. If you want to have your boat on the property,
Yeah, if you don't
a
have a
dock,
dock.
dock
Mm-hmm.
usage and all. Yeah,
Yeah,
right. That's something too, right? 'Cause people might buy something without even, but these are things you should really be looking into for sure. Hopefully your realtor is knowledgeable, but if not, you always, it comes down to the property owner, right?
exactly. Yeah, and there are some waterfront properties that they don't allow a dock on. So you have to make
Hmm.
sure that you are permitted to have a dock on that specific piece of property. It could be at the back end of a cove where you have very little water frontage, and sometimes those are the ones that end up not being able to put a dock on them. So that's something to think about. And those particular properties end up being less expensive than the ones that you can put a dock on. So some people are opting to buy those anyway, not worrying about having to have a dock and a boat. But if I were waterfront, I would want a dock and a boat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, what about the
Yeah.
whole lay of the land? You mentioned there's slope lots, flat lots, and
Yes. And so when you got a lot that appears to be a gentle slope and maybe not enough slope for a basement, it's really still important to have a topographical survey done because it can be very deceiving. We had a client that decided not to spend the money to have a topo done, and it appeared that there was a gentle slope and would maybe only be 3 to 4 feet of slope on the lot. So they decided to do a 2-story house with no basement. So we designed the 2-story house with no basement. And then once the builder was out there on site clearing the property and actually doing his own grade shots, he determined there was going to be about a 9-foot drop off of the back porch of the home that we designed. And even he was deceived until that was, that extra effort was done on site without the topo. And so we ended up, the client had to pay us to redesign the home to create a basement. So instead of having a 2-story home, we took the second floor, the rooms that were going in the second floor, and put them down below into the basement level. So it would have saved them time and money if they had gone ahead and taken our advice and gotten a topo in the beginning. We would have known that information. And I can share some plans that we have pulled up here on screen to just show you what that looks like if you'd like to see.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. All right, are you able to see?
Yep, I got it right there. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I got a little box here I need to remove. There we go. Okay, so this particular site plan, there was an existing farmhouse, and the farmhouse was, can you see my cursor here where that
Yep.
little concrete slab
Mm-hmm.
note is? There was an old farmhouse here that was taken down, and there was an old road bed down to a pasture. And the new owners wanted to build a new house here. And because of how much slope was happening, they wanted to build the house in the area that had the least amount of slope. So you can see all of these lines are pretty close together up here on the upper part of the page. The closer those lines are together, that tells you how much slope there is. And there's more slope happening there than there is when those lines get further apart. So you can see where I have this little footprint of a potential house going here where these lines are the most farthest apart, so that we could get it in the flattest area possible. So you can see these are 1 foot difference. So you got 28.95 here, and then
Mm-hmm.
you go to 2900. So you can, this tells you how much slope is happening through here.
Got it.
So I just extended that existing road bed on down and gave them a driveway through a drive-through carport on this house and down to a new barn they plan to build, and you could circle around and go right back out. Now, in this one, I'm not showing the septic field, but on this side of the driveway, there is going to be a septic drain field up here, and there's going to be a well over on, there actually is already a well for the original house over in this area. So it wasn't provided to me the exact location for that well on this survey that they gave us. But I can show you some other site plans as we go through this list. Let's see, where are we?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, retaining walls. So along this driveway, because of how steep this property is along the driveway, how close these lines are together, we'll likely end up putting some retaining walls on at least the upper side to hold back the land and create a wider drive. Another thing is this 48-inch walnut tree. This is something that's extremely important for this client to protect. And so we had that located. We'll have it staked and flagged and fenced and all sorts of things to protect this tree. It's extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. And then
Wow.
we had one where we were talking about the path of the sun. I think that was the next question.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. So when I am designing, I take into consideration where the sun is going to be rising, where it's going to be setting. Sort of that path then dictates where we put rooms within the home. So sometimes you want to have, all your morning rooms, like your kitchen and your breakfast, on the side that will be on the sunrise side. And then you'll have others that are like the master bedroom you might want on the sunset side. So I take those things into consideration. Also, we find, like on a lakefront property, if you've got a home that faces due west on your best view side, due west is the hottest side. That's where the sun
Okay.
is coming around at the end of the day. The sun is setting, and a lot of times, well, south and west, but mostly on the west side, you're going to have that late afternoon sun coming in. And if you don't have proper shading designed into the home, like with covered porches and that sort of thing, and maintaining trees on that side, then we find that a lot of times the homes have all their blinds and shades closed, and so you're losing that view during that part of the daytime every single day.
Yeah.
versus having taken that into consideration and designing it so that you're able to maintain that with your vegetation and with your orientation of the rooms and windows and porches. So we always use this solar chart here, and you can see a three different rings, and the different rings indicate the different times of the year where the sun is rising and setting. And you probably have noticed during the summertime, the
Mm-hmm.
sun seems higher in the sky, and in the winter, it seems lower in the sky. So,
Uh-huh.
so the lower it is, the tighter this little arc of sunrise to sunset. And the higher it is, the wider this arc is from sunrise to sunset. So we take all of these things into consideration when we're designing a home.
Beautiful. I never even thought about that. That's something I never looked at, thought about when I bought my home. I just knew, oh, it looks like the sun's here at this time of the day. It's not here this time. I didn't know there's a solar chart. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this tells you the different times of the year that you can be, considering that as well. Let's see. And then of course we did mention trees and vegetation. So
Yep.
we have a lot of information on our website that talks about the topography and the need for that and surveys. We also have blogs on our website that talk about vegetation and the importance of the maintaining the ecosystem on your site and limiting the amount of area that you'll clear on your site. And then also saving topsoil, because a lot of times all of that just gets cleared away and then you have to actually pay to bring topsoil back in when you're doing your
Mhm.
finished grading and your landscaping. So if you can plan ahead for that and save as many trees as possible and saving your topsoil and pre-planting all of those things on site so that it is protected, then you're maintaining your ecosystem. It's easier to do your new landscaping when you're finished with the construction, and it's a major cost savings. And so who wouldn't want to save money on landscaping? That's usually the one area that at the end of construction that typically gets cut because
Oh,
people are out of money after they've spent all their money on the house. And so the landscaping, comes later on in a year or two. So that's something that you can pre-plan for.
awesome. Well, thank you for that. Let's see. There's still so much more that we have to discuss. The trees and vegetation, as you mentioned, offering the
Mhm.
protection. Now, the blogs and articles you say on these topics on the website.
Yes. Yeah. So we have, I think we have over 50 blogs on our site right now. And all of them have excellent information that can help people learn more about the whole design process and how your home can fully support you throughout the lifetime that you're living there, and how you can be happier in your home, how you can use the natural daylighting, how you can incorporate the views everywhere possible. There's so many things about indoor air quality and creating the best HVAC system, having someone that really knows how to design an HVAC system that's going to give you the best indoor air quality and protect you from moisture and mold and those sorts of things. All of that information is in our blog, and we highly recommend that people check it out. And now
No,
this site plan that I'm showing right here has
what's
that
that?
solar chart. It also shows where the driveway's coming in, where
Mm-hmm.
the house is actually positioned, and it's showing where that drain field, and I can blow that up, where that
Let me
septic
see.
drain field is going to be
Um,
located. So there's the septic tank and the distribution box. And then these are the different lines for, I think it was perked for 3 bedrooms for this house. So they have 1, 2, and 3, enough lines for 3 bedrooms here. Yeah,
wow.
so all of those things we have to take into consideration. You can see there's 10 feet off the house for the septic tank and 10 feet off the house for beginning the drain field as well. And then the repair area is noted here. So this is the backup area for if this drain field ever stops working, this is the area that it would be moved to.
I didn't know what that meant. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's another thing to keep in mind, because then you think you've got this huge property, but then you've got all these areas that don't allow you to build in. So then
Mm-hmm.
you're restricted more and more to how much of the space you can actually use to build your house in. And they also have some repair area on the front as another backup. And the further back you sit on the lot, the more driveway you'll have, so the more expense you'll have in that as well.
And so on the repair area, are you allowed to put, you're not allowed to put cement? Just
No cement. You can't drive on it. You can't put any
grass?
kind of
Could you move?
building on it. Yeah, you can do landscaping on it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but any kind of a permanent structure or anything that's going to compact the soil will then make it not suitable for either septic or repair.
Got it. Wow. I
Yeah.
didn't realize there were so many of these restrictions, so many of the, that's why you need to deal with a professional who can help you through this. Wow.
Yeah, somebody that understands all of these things, because if you don't know, you may end up designing
Yeah.
something that doesn't actually work for your site.
Yeah. Absolutely. Could you
Yeah.
imagine? Woof. But have you had horror stories? I mean, has it been horror stories where people come to you after the fact and they should have went to you ahead of time and they didn't?
Yes, yes. We have had people that have
Oh,
had homes designed that didn't even fit the site, didn't fit within the building envelope, which is where the setbacks are situated, and have to completely redesign the house. Yeah, so it's kind of a waste of money if you don't know all of this information and you don't give your designer all the information that they need to do their job properly. They need to know, all of the HOA restrictions. If you're building in one of those developments, they need to know all the architectural restrictions. They need to know they need to have the survey. They need to have the topo, and they need to have any information related to your septic and your well. And if you don't need one of those, and also if you have, I didn't mention this on the list I sent you, but if you're going to connect to local natural gas lines, or if you're going to put in a gas fireplace or a gas cooktop and you don't have the connection to natural gas, then you'll have to have an on-site propane tank and have propane brought to you. And a lot of people don't
better
want to.
to prepare ahead of time.
Yeah,
Yeah, I moved
yeah.
into my house, didn't know any of this. Obviously, the house was 20 something years old, and I just had to rip up all the pavers to get the gas line through for the pool. And then,
Oh,
oh, and then I'm like, well, I'm putting pavers here, but I wanted maybe a barbecue area eventually. So I got the extension underneath in case for a future, but like those are the things nobody talks to you about. And as
yeah.
a yeah, if you're not in the business and you're a single woman and you don't know anything about this stuff, it's tricky. Ah,
It is. And a professional can help, be a good guide for you so that you'll know what's going on, and give you a lot of tips and information to help you not, have to tear things out and redo
yeah.
later on. Like for
Oh,
instance, this house, we're working on designing right now. We've got these drain lines here, and then we've got the repair area, and we had to squeeze the house and a tiny little pool in here to work around all of that information. And then, with the topo, there's a little area here that's like a valley or a dip in the property. So the repair area had to go on either side of that. So all of these things really compacted where we could fit a house.
and the pool, I see. And yeah,
And the
everything.
pool, yes. So this particular client really wants to have a bigger pool. So
Yeah.
we're having to go back to the septic. The soil scientist is the guy who's designing the septic system for him, and the soil scientist will have to redesign the septic to see if he can create more space on the house, on the site for the house, so that we can move the house up the hill and give the homeowner more pool.
Wow. All right. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much. Remind
Yeah.
us how we can contact you. Would you mind sharing and unsharing your screen?
Yes, I will stop share. There we go.
Thank you.
Yes. So you can reach me at pippinhomedesigns.com, and that's pippinhomedesigns.com. You can also find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Houzz, Houzz. We
All
look
right.
forward to seeing you somewhere there.
Same here. Thank you so much, Jenny. Always a pleasure. Thank you for all this information, and hope we connect again next week.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.